I'm Candice, 32, a marketing account executive at Paragon Media. For 6 years, I poured my heart into this company, bringing in our biggest clients and exceeding every target. Then came the day they passed me over for promotion, giving my intern Aaron the director position I had earned. What happened next shocked everyone, especially the VP, who told me, "Your intern deserves it." If you're wondering how this story ends, stick around. Let me know where you're watching from. Hit like and subscribe, and prepare for a lesson in knowing your worth. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, I always knew I wanted to be in marketing. My parents worked regular jobs, my dad as a postal worker, and my mom as an elementary school teacher. They instilled in me the value of hard work and perseverance. During family dinners, I would critique television commercials, analyzing what worked and what didn't. My family thought it was just a quirky habit, but it was actually the beginning of my marketing career. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in marketing from Northwestern University, not the top of my class, but solidly in the upper quarter. Finding that first job wasn't easy. The 2008 recession hit just as I was entering the job market. I sent out hundreds of applications, attended countless networking events, and worked 3 different internships simultaneously just to get my foot in the door somewhere. My first real job was at a small advertising agency where I worked 60-hour weeks for minimal pay. The experience was valuable but exhausting. I learned the basics of client management and campaign development, but after 2 years, I knew I needed something more substantial. That's when the opportunity at Paragon Media appeared. Paragon was everything I had dreamed of. A mid-sized marketing firm with impressive clients and a reputation for innovative campaigns. The interview process was rigorous, involving 6 separate meetings and a presentation of campaign ideas for a hypothetical client. When I got the call offering me the account executive position, I literally jumped up and down in my apartment, scaring my cat Isabella half to death. My first day at Paragon was both terrifying and exhilarating. The office occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows and modern open workspaces. Everyone seemed so polished and confident. I worried they would quickly realize I was out of my league, but I was determined to prove myself worthy of the opportunity. Within my first year, I brought in Westfield Department Stores, a regional chain looking to rebrand and expand. My pitch focused on authentic storytelling and community connection, moving away from their outdated, discount-focused image. The campaign increased their foot traffic by 28% and sales by 32% in the first quarter alone. The success put me on the map at Paragon. By my 3rd year, I had added 7 more significant accounts to my portfolio, including Franklin Industries, a manufacturing company, transitioning to more sustainable practices, and the Maxwell Group, a healthcare provider looking to reach younger demographics. My annual billings had reached $4 million, making me one of the top performers at my level. The recognition started coming in as well. I won the company's Innovation in Action Award 2 years running. The American Marketing Association gave our Franklin Industries sustainability campaign a gold medallion. Trade publications started mentioning my work, and I was invited to speak at several industry conferences. Despite these accomplishments, I couldn't help noticing the gender dynamics at Paragon. Of the 22 people at director level and above, only 4 were women. Executive meetings resembled boys' clubs, with conversations about golf games and fishing trips. As a woman, I often felt I had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. I developed strategies to navigate this environment. I became an expert in my clients' industries, ensuring I always had the most comprehensive information in any meeting. I documented all my successes with concrete metrics. I built alliances with colleagues who respected talent regardless of gender. And I maintained a professional demeanor, even when frustrated, never giving anyone ammunition to label me as emotional or difficult. In my 4th year, Bradley became the Vice President of Client Services and my direct supervisor. Initially, he seemed different from other executives. He actively sought my input in meetings, complimented my campaign ideas, and even mentioned potential leadership paths for me at Paragon. "You have a unique perspective," Candice Bradley told me during one of our early one-on-one meetings. "You understand the emotional connections clients need to make with their audiences. That's something we need more of at the leadership level." His encouragement gave me hope that the company culture might be evolving. I began to see a future for myself at Paragon, beyond the account executive role. I worked even harder, taking on challenging accounts others avoided and volunteering for cross-departmental projects to broaden my experience. Then Aaron arrived as a new hire in my 5th year. Fresh out of business school, he was assigned to my team to learn the ropes. He was personable and quick-witted with an easy confidence that came from never having his abilities questioned. I took my mentorship role seriously, teaching him our processes and including him in client meetings so he could observe and learn. "You're an amazing teacher, Candice," Aaron would say. "I'm learning so much from you." His flattery was pleasant, but I noticed he was more focused on impressing management than mastering the actual work. He would spend hours preparing for presentations to executives, but rush through actual client deliverables, leaving others to fix his mistakes. During company social events, Aaron was always at the center of attention, sharing jokes with the senior partners, remembering personal details about their families, and engaging in sports talk. Meanwhile, I was usually huddled with other account executives discussing campaign strategies or client challenges. I didn't think much of these dynamics at the time. I believed that results would ultimately speak for themselves. My clients were happy, our campaigns were winning awards, and revenue was growing. Surely that would matter more than who could talk football statistics with the partners. I was about to learn how wrong I was. By my 6th year at Paragon, I was managing a portfolio of 12 major clients worth a combined $18 million in annual billings. These weren't just accounts on a spreadsheet. I knew the marketing director of Franklin Industries was putting 2 kids through college. I knew the CEO of Maxwell Group had started her company after her mother received inadequate health care. I understood their businesses, their challenges, and their goals on a deeply personal level. My approach to marketing strategies was both creative and data-driven. For Sunset Organic Foods, I developed a farm-to-table content series that increased their social media engagement by over 300%. For Regional Transit Authority, I created a campaign highlighting personal stories of commuters that helped pass a funding ballot measure worth $60 million. These weren't just marketing wins. They were solutions to real business problems that made a difference for my clients. Part of my role included training junior staff, including Aaron. I created detailed onboarding materials, scheduled regular check-ins, and provided constructive feedback on his work. When he did well, I made sure Bradley and other executives knew about it. When he needed improvement, I addressed it privately and supportively. The key to client relationships is listening more than talking, I explained during one of our mentoring sessions. People can tell when you're genuinely interested in their business versus just trying to sell them something. Aaron would nod and take notes, but in client meetings, he often interrupted to showcase his knowledge or pitch ideas before fully understanding the client's needs. I would gently redirect the conversation, but it was clear he was more concerned with appearing clever than being effective. In March, an announcement appeared on the company intranet that sent a jolt of excitement through me. Thomas, the current director of client services for our division, was relocating to open Paragon's new Seattle office. His position would need to be filled within 2 months. The job description seemed tailored to my experience: minimum 5 years at Paragon, proven track record of client acquisition and retention, demonstrated leadership ability, and innovative campaign development. Not only did I meet these requirements, I exceeded them. After 6 years of dedicated service and measurable success, this felt like the opportunity I had been working toward. The following week, Bradley called me into his office for our regular one-on-one meeting. His corner office had a spectacular view of the city skyline, with sleek, modern furniture and industry awards displayed prominently on floating shelves. "I wanted to talk to you about the director position," Bradley said, leaning forward in his ergonomic chair. "Several names are being considered, but I want you to know yours is at the top of the list." My heart raced with excitement as Bradley continued. "Your client retention numbers are the best in the company. The executive team has noticed your leadership with the Sunset Organic Foods campaign. This could be your moment, Candice." "Thank you for the vote of confidence," I replied, trying to maintain my professional composure despite my internal excitement. "What can I do to strengthen my candidacy?" "Just keep doing what you're doing," Bradley assured me. "Maybe take on mentoring a couple more junior staff to showcase your leadership abilities, and put together a brief presentation on your vision for the department. Something forward-thinking but practical." I threw myself into these suggestions with renewed energy. I volunteered to mentor 2 additional junior account executives, Rachel and Jordan. I stayed late every evening for 2 weeks, crafting a comprehensive vision document for the department, complete with growth projections, innovative service offerings, and client retention strategies. My personal life took a back seat during this period. I missed my niece Lily's ballet recital, postponed 3 dinner dates with my boyfriend Michael, and worked through a weekend I had promised to visit my parents. My typical 6-day work weeks extended to 7. I started skipping lunch to fit in more calls and meetings. The physical toll was evident. I developed tension headaches that no amount of ibuprofen could dull. Dark circles appeared under my eyes from averaging 5 hours of sleep. My normally healthy diet devolved into coffee and whatever snacks were available in the office kitchen, but I considered it a worthwhile investment in my future at Paragon. Meanwhile, my client relationships continued to flourish. I had cultivated these connections beyond typical business interactions. When Janet from Maxwell Group mentioned her daughter's graduation, I sent a personalized card. When Rick from Franklin Industries launched a personal charity project, I made a donation and volunteered at their first event. These weren't strategic moves, but genuine expressions of connection with people I respected. This approach yielded tangible business results. My clients referred other companies to Paragon, specifically requesting to work with me. They approved campaigns with fewer revisions because they trusted my understanding of their needs. They even shared confidential information about upcoming initiatives, giving us time to prepare proposals before any formal RFPs were issued. Working with Candice is like having an extension of our internal team. Janet from Maxwell Group told Bradley during a client satisfaction survey. She understands our business almost better than we do sometimes. I created customized strategies for each client, rather than applying a one-size-fits-all approach. For Davidson Financial, I developed a series of educational webinars that positioned them as thought leaders in retirement planning. For Greenfield Technologies, I created an influencer partnership program that reached previously untapped market segments. These tailored approaches resulted in 92% client retention in my portfolio, compared to the company average of 78%. My clients not only stayed with Paragon, they increased their spending by an average of 24% annually. As April progressed, my confidence grew. Colleagues started congratulating me on the promotion before it was even announced. "You're the obvious choice," my coworker Alice assured me. "Everyone knows you've earned this." Bradley continued to drop hints during our meetings. "We should discuss office preferences soon," he mentioned casually. "The corner office on the east side will be available. Great morning light for early risers like you." I allowed myself to imagine my name on the door, the expanded team I would lead, the larger campaigns I could develop. After years of sacrifice and dedication, I was finally about to reach the next level of my career. The future looked promising, and I felt a deep satisfaction knowing my hard work was about to be rewarded. The date for the announcement was set April 28th. I bought a new outfit for the occasion, a tailored navy blue suit that projected confidence and professionalism. The night before, I barely slept, rehearsing my gracious acceptance and mentally planning my first initiatives as director. Little did I know that the next day would completely upend everything I thought I knew about my place at Paragon. The morning of April 28th arrived with perfect spring weather sunshine streaming through my apartment windows, as if nature itself was celebrating with me. I took extra care, getting ready, applying my makeup with precision, and choosing my grandmother's pearl earrings for good luck. The navy blue suit fit perfectly, and I added a silk scarf with a subtle pattern for a touch of personality. Looking in the mirror, I saw a future director staring back at me. The office was buzzing with anticipation when I arrived. The promotion announcement was scheduled for the monthly all-hands meeting at 10 o'clock in the main conference room. Several colleagues gave me knowing smiles as I walked to my desk, and Jessica from accounting even whispered, "Good luck today," as we passed in the hallway. By 9:55, the conference room was filling up. The long mahogany table seated the executives, while the rest of us lined the walls or took chairs in the back. Bradley sat at the table's right side, scrolling through his phone with a neutral expression that revealed nothing. I chose a spot near the front, wanting to minimize the walk to the table when my name was called. At precisely 10 o'clock, Richard, the CEO, entered the room. A tall man with salt and pepper hair and impeccable suits, he had a commanding presence that immediately quieted the chatter. "Good morning, everyone," he began. "As you know, Thomas is heading to Seattle next month to establish our Pacific Northwest presence. This creates an opportunity here for new leadership in our client services division." My heart pounded so loudly I worried others might hear it. I focused on keeping my expression professional yet receptive. The selection committee reviewed several internal candidates, Richard continued. We considered track records, leadership potential, and vision for the department's future. After careful deliberation, I'm pleased to announce our new Director of Client Services. The slight pause felt eternal. Erin Mitchell. The name hit me like a physical blow. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. Erin, A-A-R-O, my intern of barely 1 year. Applause erupted around me as Erin, seated on the opposite side of the room, stood with a surprised yet confident smile. He buttoned his jacket as he walked to the front, shaking Richard's hand firmly before turning to address the room. Thank you for this incredible opportunity, he began. I'm humbled by your confidence in me and excited to lead this amazing team. His voice faded into background noise as I struggled to maintain my composure. My face felt hot, my palms suddenly clammy. 6 years of dedication, countless nights and weekends, sacrificed millions in revenue generated, and they chose Erin. The room seemed to tilt slightly, but I forced myself to stay upright, to keep a neutral expression, to not let anyone see me. Break. Colleagues glanced at me with a mixture of surprise and pity. Alice, seated next to me, squeezed my arm gently in silent support. Across the room, I caught Bradley watching me, his expression unreadable. The meeting continued with other announcements, but I processed none of them. When it finally ended, I walked calmly to my desk, closed my office door, and stared blankly at my computer screen. Email notifications popped up, my phone rang, but I couldn't bring myself to respond to anything. The shock was too overwhelming. After 30 minutes of sitting motionless, I knew I needed answers. I messaged Bradley. Do you have time to talk today? His response came quickly. Stop by at 2 p.m. The hours until our meeting crawled by. I forced myself to respond to emails and take client calls operating on autopilot, while my mind raced with questions. Had I misinterpreted everything? Were there performance issues I wasn't aware of? Was this some kind of elaborate mistake? At 2 o'clock sharp, I knocked on Bradley's door. Come in, Candice, he called. As I entered, he didn't look up from his computer immediately. Take a seat. Be with you in just a second. I sat rigidly in the chair across from his desk, waiting as he finished typing. When he finally looked up, his expression was a practiced mixture of sympathy and firmness. I imagine you want to discuss the director announcement, he began. Yes, I replied, working to keep my voice steady. I'm confused. You indicated I was the top candidate. What changed? Bradley leaned back in his chair. The committee felt Erin brings a fresh perspective to the role. His ideas about digital integration and client acquisition strategies impressed everyone. Those were my ideas, I said. From the vision document you asked me to create, I shared those concepts with Erin during our mentoring sessions. Bradley waved his hand dismissively. Ideas are one thing. The ability to execute and lead is another. Erin has natural leadership qualities that resonated with the executive team. Natural leadership qualities, I echoed. I've led successful campaigns for 6 years. I've mentored junior staff, including Erin. I've brought in millions in revenue. What specific leadership qualities does Erin have that I lack? Bradley's expression hardened slightly. Look, Candice, this isn't just about metrics and years of service. It's about who can inspire the team, who can represent Paragon to clients and in the industry. Erin has that executive presence we need. Executive presence, I repeated slowly, the subtext becoming painfully clear. And I don't have that because... Don't make this about gender, Bradley cut in. We have women in leadership positions. 4 out of 22, I pointed out. Bradley's patience was visibly wearing thin. Erin connects well with the executive team and our client base. He understands the culture we're building. The boys' club culture, I said quietly. His face flushed red. That's exactly the kind of attitude that concerns us. Erin is positive, forward-thinking. He doesn't get hung up on office politics. I took a deep breath, trying one more approach. Bradley, I've personally secured and maintained our top billing clients. I've exceeded every performance metric. I've won industry awards. What specifically could I have done differently? That's when he said it, the words that would eventually seal Paragon's fate. Candice, sometimes talent and hard work aren't enough. Your intern deserves it. He has that certain something you can't teach. My advice: learn from him. Maybe in a few years another opportunity will come along. I left his office in a daze, the magnitude of the betrayal settling over me like a heavy blanket. It wasn't just that I didn't get the promotion. It was the realization that no amount of excellence would ever be enough in a system designed to keep people like me from advancing. Over the next few days, details of Aaron's promotion package emerged through office gossip. He was getting the corner office with the east-facing windows that Bradley had mentioned to me. His salary increase was reportedly 40% above his previous level, more than what other directors had received upon promotion. He would be leading a team of 8 account executives, including me. And his bonus structure included quarterly incentives tied to department performance, essentially allowing him to take credit for the client relationships I had built. Aaron wasted no time establishing his new authority. The Monday after his promotion, he called a team meeting to outline his vision for the department. I recognized most of the ideas from my own documents now presented as innovative new directions. When I contributed to the discussion, Aaron would respond with, "That's an interesting perspective, Candice, but we need to think bigger." In client meetings, Aaron began inserting himself between me and the relationships I had cultivated. He would email clients, directly schedule calls without my knowledge, and present campaign updates I had prepared without acknowledging my work. When Janet from Maxwell Group specifically asked for my opinion during a presentation, Aaron interrupted, "As Candice's director, I can provide a more comprehensive view of our strategy." My role was being systematically diminished, my contributions minimized, and my future at Paragon suddenly looked nothing like what I had worked toward for 6 years. The company had made their statement loud and clear. Excellence wasn't enough. Connections were what mattered, and those connections followed gendered lines I could never cross. That Friday evening, I managed to maintain my professional demeanor until I reached the privacy of my car in the parking garage. Once inside with the doors locked and windows tinted, the emotional dam finally broke. Tears streamed down my face as 6 years of dedication, sacrifice, and hope collapsed under the weight of Bradley's words, "Your intern deserves it." I sobbed until my mascara created dark rivers down my cheeks and my throat felt raw. The unfairness of it all overwhelmed me. How many weekends had I worked, while Aaron was out, networking over golf? How many family events had I missed, to complete projects that he now took credit for? How many times had I swallowed my frustration when male colleagues received praise for ideas I had suggested earlier? The deepest cut was the realization that I had genuinely believed merit would win out. Despite seeing the patterns of bias throughout my career, I had convinced myself that exceptional work would transcend these barriers. Now faced with irrefutable evidence to the contrary, I questioned everything about my professional identity. Was I not good enough? Had I misread my own abilities? Maybe Aaron really did possess qualities I lacked. These doubts circled in my mind like vultures picking apart my self-confidence piece by piece. I finally drove home in a daze, barely registering the familiar streets and traffic lights. My apartment, usually a sanctuary, felt cold and empty. I changed out of my work clothes, putting the navy blue suit that was supposed to be my director suit in the back of the closet. I couldn't bear to look at it. That night I called my best friend Jessica, who had witnessed my journey at Paragon from the beginning. Her immediate outrage was both validating and comforting. "They did what?" she exclaimed when I told her about Aaron's promotion. "That's beyond ridiculous. Everyone knows you've carried that department for years." Bradley said Aaron has natural leadership qualities and executive presence. I explained the words still bitter on my tongue. Translation: "He's a man who reminds the old boys of themselves," Jessica retorted. "This isn't a reflection of your abilities, Candice. It's a reflection of their limitations." Her unwavering belief in me provided temporary relief from the spiral of self-doubt. We talked for over 2 hours, dissecting the situation and considering options. Jessica suggested I consult an employment lawyer about potential discrimination, but the thought of a protracted legal battle felt exhausting. The following day, I received a call from Melanie, a former Paragon colleague who had left the previous year for a competitor. "I heard about the director position," she said without preamble. "Total garbage decision." "You're not surprised, though," I noted. "Unfortunately, no. It's why I left. Remember when they promoted Greg over Diana for the creative director role? Same pattern." Melanie sighed. "The thing is, Candice, they don't value what they don't understand. Your approach to client relationships, the way you build trust through authentic connection rather than golf course schmoozing that's foreign to them. Melanie's perspective helped me see my situation within a larger pattern, which was both depressing and oddly comforting. At least it wasn't just me. Sunday dinner with my sister Stephanie provided another perspective. Unlike Jessica's righteous anger or Melanie's world-weary resignation, Stephanie was strategically minded. "This is terrible, and you have every right to be upset," she acknowledged as we sat at her kitchen table. "But now you need to think about leverage." "Leverage," I repeated. "What do you have that Paragon needs? What's your unique value that they can't easily replace?" Stephanie asked, her background in corporate negotiations coming to the fore. "Because that's your power in this situation." The conversation with Stephanie planted a seed, but I wasn't ready to nurture it yet. The emotional toll was still too great. That night, I barely slept, tossing and turning as conversations from the past week played on repeat in my mind. Around 3 in the morning, I gave up on sleep entirely and sat by my window watching the city lights and wondering if I should leave marketing altogether. The insomnia continued throughout the week. I would fall asleep from sheer exhaustion around midnight, only to wake at 2 or 3, my mind racing with alternative scenarios, things I should have said to Bradley, imaginary confrontations with Aaron. By Friday, I was functioning on coffee and anxiety. My performance began to suffer for the first time in my career. During a client call, I confused details between 2 campaigns. In a team meeting, I struggled to focus on the discussion, missing a question directed at me. Aaron noticed, of course, using these small lapses to further undermine my standing. "Candice seems a bit overwhelmed lately. I'll need to review her client load." The anxiety began to manifest physically. My stress headaches intensified to migraines. My stomach revolted against food, leading to skipped meals and weight loss. Getting dressed for work each morning became an ordeal as I questioned every outfit choice, wondering if I looked executive enough, then immediately hating myself for even considering that my appearance might be the issue. Throughout my career, I had maintained confidence in my professional identity. Now that foundation was cracking. I found myself second-guessing contributions in meetings, prefacing ideas with qualifiers like, "This might not be fully developed, but," or, "just thinking out loud here." Behaviors I had previously identified and eliminated as undermining my authority were creeping back in. The weekend after my confrontation with Bradley became a turning point. Exhausted both emotionally and physically, I decided to completely disconnect from work. I silenced email notifications, ignored the stack of reports I had brought home, and focused on basic self-care. I slept for 12 hours straight on Saturday, waking only when the afternoon sun slanted directly across my face. That day, I did nothing that could be considered productive. I watched mindless television, ordered delivery food, and took a long bath. Sunday, with slightly renewed energy, I began researching workplace gender bias, reading articles and studies that described situations painfully similar to mine. One article particularly resonated: the double-bind performance recognition for women in business. It detailed how women often find themselves in no-win situations where they're either seen as competent but unlikable or likable but incompetent. The research validated my experience in a way that helped transform my pain into something more constructive: anger. Anger, I discovered, was far more energizing than despair. It cleared my thinking and redirected my focus from self-doubt to problem-solving. As Sunday evening approached, bringing with it the looming specter of another week under Aaron's leadership, I found myself considering Stephanie's question about leverage with new clarity. What did I have that Paragon needed? The answer, when it finally crystallized, was so obvious I almost laughed. I had the relationships. Not just any relationships, but deep, authentic connections with the clients who provided Paragon's largest revenue streams. These weren't institutional relationships tied to the company. They were personal, built on trust I had earned through years of delivering exceptional results and genuine care for their businesses. As this realization took hold, the outline of a response began to form in my mind. Not an emotional reaction, but a strategic plan. For the first time since the promotion announcement, I felt a sense of calm purpose. I might not have the title or the corner office, but I had something far more valuable. I fell asleep that night with a plan taking shape, ready to face the week ahead with a new perspective. This wasn't about proving my worth to Paragon anymore. It was about recognizing that worth for myself and acting accordingly. Monday morning, I arrived at the office with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. The anger had crystallized into determination, and I now understood exactly what I needed to do. While I had no intention of being unprofessional, I was done playing by rules designed for me to lose. My first step was subtle. I began keeping detailed records of all client interactions, campaign progress, and team contributions in a personal notebook rather than the shared project management system. When Aaron asked why certain updates weren't in the system, I would add them, but only after creating my own comprehensive documentation. I also maintained direct communication with my clients outside of Aaron's oversight. While he was included on official emails, I would follow up with personal calls to ensure continuity in our relationships. Just checking in to make sure we're still aligned on the strategy, I would say to Janet at Maxwell Group or Rick at Franklin Industries. With the recent changes in our team structure, I want to ensure nothing falls through the cracks. These conversations allowed me to subtly remind clients of our established relationship while gathering information about Aaron's separate communications with them. Aaron mentioned exploring a different direction for the summer campaign, Rick told me during one such call. It seemed to contradict what we had already discussed. That's interesting, I replied neutrally. I'll make sure we're all on the same page internally. I documented every instance where Aaron altered established strategies without client consultation or took credit for work he hadn't contributed to. My notebook became a detailed record of mismanagement that I hoped would eventually prove useful. Simultaneously, I worked on increasing my visibility with company leadership beyond Bradley. When Diane, the chief marketing officer, put out a call for volunteers to represent Paragon at an industry conference, I immediately offered to lead a panel discussion. When Richard, the CEO, asked for input on the company's 5-year vision, I submitted a thoughtful analysis directly to him rather than through the usual channels. These efforts didn't go unnoticed. After my panel at the conference received positive feedback, Diane stopped by my office. "That was impressive work, Candice," she said. "You represented Paragon exactly the way we want to be seen in the industry." "Thank you," I replied. "I've always been passionate about positioning Paragon as a thought leader." "We should talk more about your perspectives on where the industry is headed," she suggested. "Maybe lunch next week." These small wins helped rebuild some of my confidence, but they didn't address the fundamental issue. Aaron was still my boss, still taking credit for my work, and still undermining my client relationships. 3 weeks after the promotion announcement, I decided to speak directly with Richard, the CEO. I scheduled a meeting through his assistant, positioning it as a discussion about client retention strategies rather than a complaint session. Richard's office occupied the prime corner of the executive floor, with views in 2 directions and space for both a desk area and a small seating arrangement. He greeted me with professional warmth. "Candice, good to see you. Your Franklin Industries campaign is getting excellent traction. The board specifically mentioned it in our last meeting." "Thank you, Richard. Franklin has been a rewarding partnership." I took a seat across from him, careful to project confidence without aggression. I wanted to discuss some concerns about our client retention approach, particularly with our top-tier accounts. I outlined several instances where Aaron's inexperience had created confusion with clients, using specific examples without explicitly criticizing his leadership. I framed everything in terms of business impact rather than personal frustration. Richard listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "I appreciate your bringing these concerns forward, Candice. Client relationships are the lifeblood of our business." He paused. "However, any leadership transition comes with an adjustment period. Aaron is still learning the nuances of his role." Of course, I agreed. "My concern is that during this adjustment period, we risk losing clients who have specific expectations about their service level." Richard nodded thoughtfully. "A valid point. What would you suggest?" "Perhaps a more collaborative approach during the transition. Major account decisions could include both Aaron's fresh perspective and my established understanding of client needs." "That seems reasonable," Richard said, but something in his tone suggested he was merely placating me. "I'll mention it to Bradley and Aaron. In the meantime, I encourage you to give Aaron a chance to grow into the role. His potential is quite remarkable." I left the meeting with the distinct impression that nothing would change. Richard's emphasis on Aaron's potential over my proven track record confirmed what I had suspected. The decision to promote Aaron was never about qualifications or results. It was about maintaining the established order. The breaking point came during a crucial presentation to Sunset Organic Foods, one of my largest accounts. I had spent weeks preparing a comprehensive marketing strategy for their new product line, including detailed market analysis, creative concepts, and implementation timelines. The morning of the presentation, Aaron informed me that he would be leading the meeting. "I should take point on this as the director," he said casually. "You can handle the technical details if questions come up." During the presentation, Aaron proceeded to present my entire strategy as if it were his own creation. He used my slides, my research, even my phrasing in some cases. When Christina, the marketing director at Sunset, asked about the research methodology behind one of the consumer behavior findings, Aaron fumbled. "Candice can address that specific technical aspect," he deflected. After I explained the methodology, Christina looked confused. "This approach has your signature all over it, Candice. It's similar to what you developed for our previous campaign. Did you lead this project, or did Aaron?" Before I could respond, Aaron jumped in. "It was a collaborative effort under my direction. Candice executed specific components based on my strategic framework." I watched Christina's expression shift from confusion to understanding as she glanced between Aaron and me. After the meeting, she pulled me aside. "Is everything okay, Candice? This dynamic seems new." "Aaron was recently promoted to director," I explained, keeping my tone neutral. "We're still defining our collaborative process." Christina nodded slowly. "I see. Well, regardless of titles, we value your specific expertise. That's why Sunset works with Paragon." Her words confirmed what I had been realizing: my clients worked with me, not with Paragon as an institution. The relationship, the trust, the value, all resided in the connection I had built with them over years of dedicated service. That evening, I made a decision. I would leave Paragon. But I wouldn't just leave. I would take what I had truly earned, the client relationships I had built. Before taking any action, I needed to ensure I was on solid legal ground. I contacted an attorney specializing in employment law, bringing my employment contract for review. We spent 2 hours going through every clause related to non-competition client solicitation and intellectual property. "The non-compete is fairly standard," the attorney explained. "You can't work for a direct competitor within 50 miles for 1 year after leaving Paragon." "What about client relationships?" I asked. She flipped to a specific section. "This is interesting. The non-solicitation clause has a significant loophole. It prevents you from soliciting clients for 6 months after employment ends, but only applies to clients you were introduced to through Paragon. Clients you brought to the company or developed independently aren't covered. And if a client chooses to follow me on their own initiative, that's not solicitation," she confirmed. "If they approach you, that's entirely different from you approaching them." This was the information I needed. Most of my major clients were either ones I had brought to Paragon or had developed from initial cold contacts. Only 2 had been existing Paragon clients when I started. With legal clarity established, I began quietly exploring opportunities with other agencies. My reputation in the industry made these conversations surprisingly easy. 3 firms expressed immediate interest, but one stood out: Apex Creative, a rising agency known for its innovative approach and commitment to diversity and leadership. My meeting with Linda, the CEO of Apex, was refreshingly direct. "We've admired your work from afar for years," she said. "The Westfield rebranding was brilliant, and what you did with Franklin Industries' sustainability campaign set new standards in the industry." "Thank you," I replied. "I'm proud of those campaigns." "Let's be straightforward," Linda continued. "We want you at Apex. We're prepared to offer you a director-level position with the autonomy to build your own team. The question is, can you bring clients with you?" "I have strong relationships with several major accounts," I answered carefully. "I can't and won't solicit them while still employed at Paragon. However, if they choose to follow me after I depart, that would be their business decision." Linda smiled knowingly. "Of course, we understand professional ethics. The position is yours regardless, but we're prepared to offer additional incentives based on any accounts that might independently decide to work with Apex after you join us." The offer was exactly what I had hoped for: recognition of my value, appropriate compensation, and the leadership role I had earned. I accepted with a start date 4 weeks in the future, to allow for proper transition at Paragon. With my next steps secured, I returned to Paragon with renewed purpose, methodically preparing for my departure. I documented all current project statuses, gathered portfolios of my work, being careful to exclude proprietary client information, and organized my digital files. I also began subtly setting the stage with my clients. Without ever mentioning my plans to leave, I ensured they understood my personal commitment to their success. "No matter what happens, I want you to achieve your goals," I told Janet during a casual coffee meeting. "Your success is important to me beyond just our professional relationship." "That's why we value working with you, Candice," she replied. "We know you're genuinely invested in our business." With everything in place, I was ready for the final act in my response to Paragon's betrayal. The pieces were set, and soon they would understand exactly what they had lost when they decided my intern deserved the promotion I had earned. The execution of my plan required perfect timing and professionalism. I had secured my position at Apex Creative, with a substantial salary increase, equity options, and the director title I had earned. My contract included performance bonuses tied to client acquisition, with specific incentives for bringing over accounts from my Paragon portfolio. Before submitting my resignation, I completed several important preparations. I transferred all personal items from my office gradually over several days, taking home awards, photos, and other mementos without drawing attention. I finalized all active campaign documentation, ensuring that whoever inherited my accounts would have clear roadmaps for ongoing projects. I also created comprehensive client profiles detailing preferences, history, and key contacts, again stored in my personal records rather than Paragon's system. I chose to submit my resignation on a Friday evening after most executives had left for the weekend. I drafted a simple professional email to Bradley, Richard, and Human Resources. "Please accept this letter as formal notification of my resignation from my position as account executive at Paragon Media, effective 2 weeks from today. Thank you for the opportunities for professional growth that you have provided during my 6 years with the company. If I can be of any assistance during the transition, please let me know." I hit send at 5:45, just as I heard Bradley's office door close and his footsteps recede down the hallway. I then cleared my desk of remaining personal items, deleted personal information from my company laptop, and walked out of the Paragon office for what I knew might be the last time. The weekend passed in strange calm. I expected to feel anxiety or perhaps guilt about my plans, but instead I felt a profound sense of peace. For the first time in weeks, I slept through both Friday and Saturday nights without waking. Sunday evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Richard. "Just saw your resignation." Surprised. "Why?" I considered a lengthy explanation, but opted for simplicity. "I've accepted a position that better aligns with my professional goals." "Let's talk Monday before you make this final," he replied. I didn't respond. There was nothing to discuss. Monday morning, I arrived at the office early to find meeting invitations from both Bradley and Richard. I accepted both, scheduling Bradley first at 9 and Richard at 11. Bradley's meeting was predictably defensive. He sat behind his desk, creating a power distance that I now found almost amusing in its transparency. "This is rather sudden, Candice," he began. "I thought you were committed to Paragon." "I was," I replied simply. "For 6 years. Is this about the director position? Because that's a very unprofessional reason to leave." I maintained my composure. "I'm leaving because I've found an opportunity that better recognizes my contributions and potential. My decision is final, but I'm committed to a smooth transition for my clients." "Your clients?" Bradley's eyebrows raised. "They're Paragon's clients. I assume Aaron will be taking over those relationships." I smiled slightly. "Of course, I've prepared detailed documentation on all accounts." The meeting with Richard took a different tone. He welcomed me into his office with a concerned expression, motioning for me to sit in the more personal seating area rather than across his desk. "I have to say, Candice, your resignation caught me off guard. I thought you were happy here." "I was for many years," I acknowledged. "But it's time for me to pursue new challenges." Richard leaned forward. "Is there anything we can do to change your mind? We value your contributions to Paragon." "I appreciate that, but my decision is made." "May I ask where you're going?" "I've accepted a director position at another agency," I stated simply. Richard's expression shifted subtly. "A director position, I see. He paused, seeming to reassess the situation. Perhaps we should discuss your future at Paragon. There might be opportunities we haven't explored. Thank you, but as I said, my decision is final. The remainder of my 2-week notice period was largely administrative. I attended transition meetings, completed documentation, and handed off active projects. Aaron made a point of scheduling client introduction calls, positioning himself as the new lead on my accounts. I want to assure you that the transition will be seamless, he told Janet from Maxwell Group during one such call. While Candice has decided to pursue other opportunities, our team at Paragon remains committed to your success. Janet's response was polite but non-committal. We appreciate that, Aaron. We'll certainly give Paragon every consideration moving forward. As my final day approached, I made no mention of my next destination to anyone at Paragon. Rumors circulated, of course, but I neither confirmed nor denied any specifics. My goodbye was low-key, a simple lunch with a few close colleagues, rather than any formal farewell. Bradley didn't appear for my exit interview, sending a human resources representative instead. My company laptop and security badge were collected. Standard confidentiality reminders were issued, and just like that, my 6 years at Paragon concluded with a form signed in triplicate. The following Monday, I began at Apex Creative. Linda welcomed me personally, introducing me to the executive team and showing me to my new office, a corner space with my name already on the door. I spent the first few days acclimating to Apex's systems and culture, impressed by the collaborative environment and diverse leadership team. On Thursday of my first week, exactly as planned, I began my outreach to former clients. I was careful to frame these communications appropriately. There was no solicitation, simply notification of my new position. I wanted to let you know that I've joined Apex Creative as their new Client Services Director, my email to Janet read. I've valued our professional relationship over the years and wanted to share this update personally. Janet's response came within 20 minutes. Congrats on your new role. I'd love to hear more about this move. Are you free for coffee tomorrow? Similar exchanges occurred with 5 other key clients. By Friday afternoon, I had coffee or lunch scheduled with 7 former clients for the following week. These meetings followed a consistent pattern. I would share my excitement about my new role at Apex. The clients would express happiness for my advancement, and then inevitably they would ask about continuing our working relationship. Paragon has reached out several times since you left. Rick from Franklin Industries told me over lunch. This Aaron person seems eager, but frankly we're not comfortable with someone so new handling our account. Is there any possibility of working with you at Apex? I was careful with my response. I can't actively solicit Paragon clients, Rick. That would be unprofessional. However, if Franklin were to decide independently that Apex better serves your needs, we would certainly welcome the opportunity to propose our services. Rick smiled. Consider us independently interested. Send over the paperwork. By the end of my second week at Apex, Franklin Industries had officially terminated their relationship with Paragon and requested a proposal from Apex. Maxwell Group followed 3 days later. The domino effect continued as word spread through my network of clients. Sunset, Organic Foods Davidson, Financial Greenfield Technologies, and Regional Transit Authority all initiated contact with Apex within the first month. Together, these accounts represented nearly 40% of my previous portfolio at Paragon, approximately $7 million in annual billings. The reaction from Paragon was predictable. Bradley called me directly, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. What did you say to Franklin Industries? They just terminated a 5-year relationship with no warning. I haven't said anything inappropriate to any Paragon clients, Bradley, I replied calmly. If they're making business decisions, I suggest you speak with them directly. This is highly unprofessional, Candice. We're reviewing our legal options. I understand you're upset. However, I've been careful to operate within the terms of my employment agreement. Clients make their own decisions about agency partnerships. Similar calls came from Aaron, and eventually Richard himself. Each conversation followed the same pattern: accusations, implied threats, and finally grudging recognition that they had limited recourse. My attorney had confirmed that I was operating within the bounds of my contract. If clients chose to follow me to Apex based on their preference for working with me, that was their prerogative. The panic at Paragon intensified as the financial impact became clear. Aaron, unprepared for the crisis, struggled to retain relationships he had never truly managed. In client meetings, he couldn't answer basic questions about campaign strategies I had developed or provide the insights clients had come to expect. Frankly, he seemed completely out of his depth, Christina from Sunset Organic Foods told me after a final meeting with Paragon. When we asked about continuing the storytelling approach you developed, he suggested we pivot to something more data-driven, without any specific recommendations. Bradley made desperate attempts to salvage the situation, offering clients significant discounts and free services to remain with Paragon. For a few smaller accounts, this worked. The major clients, however, understood that their success depended on strategic partnerships, not price points. By the end of my second month at Apex, I had effectively transferred clients representing $8 million in annual billings to my new agency. My team was growing with 2 talented account executives recruited from other agencies and a creative director who shared my vision for authentic client relationships. The final communication from Paragon came from Richard, not as a call or email, but as a text message sent on a Sunday evening. "Why did you resign?" The question seemed so fundamentally disconnected from reality that I almost laughed. After all that had happened, after the clear demonstration of my value through client loyalty, he still didn't understand. My reply was simple but profound, because I finally recognized my worth even when Paragon didn't. Richard's text message opened a floodgate of communication from Paragon. Within 24 hours, I received calls from both Bradley and the head of human resources, each with increasingly desperate offers to entice me back. "We've reassessed the director position," Bradley said, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "We can offer you the role immediately with a 40% salary increase and signing bonus." "Thank you for the offer," I replied, "but I'm committed to my position at Apex." The human resources director was even more direct. "Name your price, Candice. Whatever Apex is paying, we'll beat it." It was never about the money, I told her honestly. It was about recognition and respect. The most surprising call came from Aaron himself, his voice uncharacteristically humble. "I underestimated you," he admitted. "I thought the clients were loyal to Paragon, not to you personally." "That was a common misconception at Paragon," I replied without malice. "Client relationships aren't institutional, they're personal." Through industry connections, I learned about the aftermath at my former employer. Aaron had been quietly demoted back to account executive, though they maintained his title to save face externally. Bradley was facing intense scrutiny from the board for his role in the client exodus. Most tellingly, Paragon had hastily formed a client retention task force, led primarily by women who had previously been overlooked for leadership roles. Meanwhile, my transition to Apex exceeded all expectations. The clients who followed me quickly integrated into our processes, appreciating the fresh perspective, while maintaining the consistent service they valued. Within 3 months, I had expanded my team to 12 people, each selected, not just for their skills, but for their authentic approach to client relationships. My success did not go unnoticed in the industry. Trade publications ran features with titles like "Client Loyalty in the Modern Agency," "The Candice Effect," and "How One Director's Move Reshuffled the Agency Landscape." I was invited to speak at conferences about authentic client relationship building and featured on marketing podcasts, discussing the changing dynamics of agency-client partnerships. The financial impact was substantial for both companies. Apex's revenue increased by 23% in the first year after my arrival, with client retention rates above 95%. Paragon, meanwhile, reported their first quarterly loss in 5 years and underwent a significant restructuring that included Bradley's eventual departure. My personal growth during this period was perhaps the most meaningful outcome. The confidence that had been shaken by Paragon's betrayal not only returned but strengthened. I no longer questioned my value or abilities. The concrete evidence of client loyalty had answered that question definitively. Leading my own team allowed me to create the inclusive, merit-based environment I had always wanted. We celebrated diverse perspectives promoted based on measurable results rather than executive presence, and built a culture where everyone's contributions were recognized. "The difference in this team is that everyone feels heard," remarked Alice, who had eventually followed me from Paragon. "Ideas aren't evaluated based on who proposes them, but on their actual merit." Within 2 years, I was promoted to vice president at Apex with responsibility for client strategy across all accounts. Linda, the CEO, made the announcement at our annual company meeting. "Candice has transformed not just our client relationships, but our entire approach to service," she said. She represents everything Apex stands for: excellence, authenticity, and innovation. As my professional life flourished, I also found healing in my personal life. The bitterness I had initially felt toward Paragon gradually transformed into gratitude for the push I had needed to find my true path. I reconnected with family and friends who had taken a back seat during my years of overwork, rebuilding relationships that brought richness to my life beyond career achievements. I also began mentoring young women in marketing, particularly those facing the same biases I had encountered. Through a professional association, I established a mentorship program specifically for women of color in advertising who faced even greater barriers than I had. The most important thing I learned I would tell my mentees is that your value isn't determined by someone else's recognition of it. Your worth exists independently of titles or corner offices. The deeper life lessons from my experience became clearer with time and reflection. I learned that recognizing your true value often comes only after someone else fails to see it. The betrayal at Paragon forced me to articulate my worth in concrete terms, something I might never have done otherwise. I understood the power of responding strategically rather than emotionally. While the initial hurt and anger were real and valid, channeling those feelings into calculated action, rather than impulsive reaction, made all the difference in the outcome. Perhaps most importantly, I recognized that true professional relationships are built on genuine value creation, not institutional loyalty. The clients who followed me did so because our connection was based on authentic service and results, not company names or titles. The experience taught me to stand up for myself without becoming bitter. There was a freedom in walking away from Paragon without burning bridges or seeking revenge. Success truly was the best response to their underestimation of my value. 4 years after leaving Paragon, I received an unexpected email from Richard. The company had been acquired by a larger agency network, marking the end of Paragon as an independent entity. "I've had time to reflect on what happened," he wrote. "We made a significant mistake in not recognizing and rewarding your contributions appropriately. That decision cost Paragon dearly, not just in revenue but in reputation. I wanted you to know that I learned from it, even if the lesson came too late for our company." His acknowledgement brought a sense of closure I hadn't realized I still needed. It confirmed that my departure had created positive change, not just for me, but potentially for others who would face similar situations. Today, as I look back on that pivotal moment when Bradley told me, "Your intern deserves it," I feel an almost surreal detachment. Those words that once cut so deeply now seem like the necessary catalyst for the career and life I truly deserved. The journey from that moment of betrayal to my current position required courage, strategic thinking, and faith in my own abilities. It taught me that sometimes the paths we don't choose open doors to possibilities we never imagined. Most importantly, it showed me that knowing your worth is only the beginning. Acting on that knowledge is where true empowerment lies. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between staying in a comfortable but unfulfilling situation versus taking a risk for potential growth? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If my experience resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more authentic stories, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that their value exists, regardless of external validation. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, your worth is not determined by someone else's inability to see it.